The compliment that hurts, you're so mature for your age. For most kids, that's a compliment. For some, it's a eulogy, a marker of the childhood that just ended. Because here's what that phrase often really means. You've learned to hide your needs so well, we forget you have any. Today we're exploring the psychology of forced early maturity, and more importantly, how to recognize if you're still living in patterns that were never meant to last into adulthood. The trade nobody chooses. Imagine you're 8 years old. Your home feels unstable. Maybe there's substance abuse, mental illness, financial crisis, or just emotional absence. Your nervous system is screaming for safety. So your brain does something brilliant and tragic. It offers you a deal. Give up being a kid, and I'll give you some control. Learn to manage everyone's emotions, and maybe things won't fall apart. Become small, quiet, and helpful, and maybe you'll be worth keeping. You didn't sign this contract consciously, but your survival instincts did it for you. This is what psychologists identify as parentification, when the parent-child roles reverse and a child becomes responsible for emotional or practical caregiving that should flow in the opposite direction. The 4 phases of too soon adulthood, early forced maturity doesn't look the same for everyone. Here are the 4 most common patterns. 1. The emotional firefighter. You became the family thermostat, constantly reading the room, predicting moods, preventing explosions. You learned that your emotional labor could buy temporary peace. Now, as an adult, you're exhausted from managing everyone's feelings while ignoring your own. 2. The invisible achiever. You discovered that being perfect was safer than being seen. Straight A's, clean room, no complaints. You traded visibility for approval. Now you can't stop achieving, but nothing ever feels like enough because you are still trying to earn the unconditional love you deserved automatically. Free caretaker without boundaries. You became the parent to your parent, the therapist to your siblings, the adult in a child's body. You learned your value comes from what you provide, not who you are. Now you attract people who need fixing while repelling those who simply want to love you. 4. The hyper-independent fortress. You realized asking for help was dangerous. It was ignored, punished, or used against you. So you stopped asking. Now you're allergic to vulnerability and confuse isolation with strength. Which one resonates? Many people recognize pieces of all 4. What actually happens in the brain? Let's get specific about the neuroscience, because understanding this isn't weakness, it's power. When a child experiences chronic unpredictability, their developing brain gets stuck in what's called continuous threat detection mode. The amygdala, your alarm system, becomes hyperactive. The prefrontal cortex, your rational thinking center, develops faster than it should, but in a narrow way. You become excellent at reading microexpressions, predicting danger, suppressing your own needs, performing competence, but you struggle with receiving care without suspicion, relaxing without guilt, expressing needs without shame, trusting that peace will last. This isn't a character flaw. It's an adaptation that was brilliant at age 7, but limiting at age 37. The adult symptoms nobody connects. Here's what most people miss. The effects don't announce themselves clearly. They hide in patterns you think are just who you are. You might feel guilty resting while others are struggling, apologize excessively, even for things that aren't your fault. Minimize your own pain with phrases like others have it worse. Struggle to celebrate your win because you're already scanning for the next crisis. Feel like an imposter in your own success. Have a panic response to being taken care of. Over-explain yourself constantly as if you need permission to exist. Feel strangely comfortable in chaos and anxious in peace. These aren't random quirks. They're echoes of a childhood spent managing the unmanageable. The relationship pattern you keep repeating. Here's where it gets painful. Adults who grew up too fast often unconsciously recreate the dynamics they learned. In romantic relationships, you're attracted to people you can help or fix because caregiving feels like love. When someone is actually stable and kind, you get bored or suspicious. Your nervous system doesn't recognize healthy love because it wasn't there when your template formed. In friendships, You're always the therapist, never the client. You listen endlessly but deflect when someone asks how you're doing. Being needed feels safer than being known. At work, you overfunction, take on others' responsibilities, and struggle to delegate. You say yes when you mean no, because boundaries still feel like rejection. This isn't weakness, it's your younger self still trying to earn safety through service. The permission you're waiting for, there's a specific fantasy many of us carry. It goes like this: one day, someone will notice I'm not actually as strong as I pretend. They'll see through my performance. And instead of being disappointed, they'll say, "You can stop now. Let me take care of you." And I'll finally get to collapse. Here's the hard truth. That moment isn't coming from outside. The permission to rest, to be imperfect, to have needs, that has to come from you. Because the world will happily let you keep over-functioning forever. Your strength is useful to people. Your silence is convenient. The grief work. Nobody warns you about healing from forced early maturity. Requires something counterintuitive. You have to grieve what you lost. Not just the obvious things like childhood or innocence, but the subtle losses. The right to be messy without consequences, the safety to express anger without everything falling apart, the experience of being cared for without having to earn it, the luxury of not knowing things children shouldn't know. This grief isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It shows up when you see parents protecting their kids in ways no one protected you. It surfaces when you realize how much energy you've spent managing other people's emotional worlds. And yes, it hurts. The unfelt grief doesn't disappear, it just fossilizes into numbness, resentment, or endless busyness. The reparenting framework, so how do you actually heal? Not with mantras or quick fixes, but with deliberate reparenting. Here's a practical framework. Step 1, notice the pattern when you're overfunctioning. Pause and ask, am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't? Step 2, identify the younger part. What age do you feel like in this moment? Often, you'll recognize it's not your adult self responding. It's your 8-year-old or 12-year-old self who learned that their value was conditional. Step 3, speak to that part, literally, out loud or in writing. I see you trying to keep everyone safe. That was so brave. But we're safe. You don't have to manage this anymore. I've got us. Step 4, do the opposite action. If your parent is overgiving, practice receiving. If it's isolation, practice asking for small things. If it's hyper-independence, let someone help you even if it feels excruciating. This isn't comfortable. Your nervous system will scream that you're in danger. That's normal. You're literally rewiring decades of conditioning. The boundary revolution, one of the most radical acts of healing, is learning to disappoint people. Read that again. Learning to disappoint people. Because if you grew up as the family peacekeeper, no feels like betrayal. Setting a boundary feels like abandonment. Prioritizing yourself feels selfish, but boundaries aren't selfish, they're honest. And the people who are upset by your boundaries are usually the ones who benefited from you having none. Start small. I can't talk right now, but I can call you tomorrow. I need to think about that before I commit. Actually, I'd prefer not to. Notice how your body reacts. The guilt, the panic, the urge to over-explain. That's your trauma talking, not your truth. Reclaiming rest as resistance for those who grew up too fast. Rest isn't relaxation, it's rebellion. You were taught that your worth is measured by output, that stopping means failing, that needing breaks means weakness. So when you rest without producing, you're not being lazy. You're literally deprogramming decades of conditioning. Rest is how you tell your nervous system, the emergency is over. We survived. It's safe to stop running now. And yes, it will feel wrong at first. Good. That wrongness is the sound of healing. The relationship you can actually build, here's the hopeful part. Understanding this pattern means you can choose differently. You can seek relationships where you're valued for who you are, not what you provide. Practice asking for help in small, safe ways. Learn to trust that people can handle their own emotions, stop scanning for danger in every peaceful moment, accept that you deserve care without earning it first. This doesn't happen overnight. Some days you'll slip back into old patterns. That's not failure, it's neurology. Be patient with yourself. The truth about your strength, here's what I need you to hear. Your resilience is real. Your strength is genuine. The fact that you survived and built a life that matters, but you don't have to keep proving it anymore. The child who learned to be strong had no choice. The adult you are now does. You can be strong and ask for help. You can be capable and have needs. You can be mature and still deserve to be cared for. These aren't contradictions. They're wholeness. The childhood you carry forward, you can't go back and have the childhood you deserved. That door is closed, and grieving that is part of healing. But you can give your present self what your past self needed: permission to rest, safety, to feel, freedom to choose the right to take up space without apologizing. The child you were is still with you, not as a wound, but as a witness to your survival. And now, finally, you get to tell them, you did everything right. You kept us alive. But I've got it from here. You can rest now. That's not the end of your story. That's where real life begins. Not the one you built to survive. The one you choose, because you're finally truly free.